All right, we're going live. All right, awesome. Hey, everybody, how's it going? I'm Ian Douglas. I'm the author of the website techinterview.guide. Tonight in the screen down below, we've got Jerome Hardaway from Vets Who Code. Jerome, awesome. Great to have you here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Jerome's going to help me get through that backlog of Q&A that I've been talking about for weeks. Like one of these days, I'm going to sit down and go through all those questions. Well, tonight's the night, and we got Jerome here. For those that remember Dan Moore on the stream, Dan recommended that I connect with Jerome, and we've been chatting a little bit over let me turn that music down so y'all can hear me. We've been chatting a little bit over Twitter, and I'm like, yeah, I need to get this guy on my stream for sure. So yeah, really excited to have you, Jerome. Why don't you give us a bit of an intro? Tell us about you. Tell us about your background. What is Vets Who Code? All that good stuff.
Roger that. First off, thank you for having me. My name is Jerome Hardaway. By day, I'm a senior software engineer at Microsoft on the CSE team. I'm on team Hermes. This focuses on everything all the big crazy Azure projects that have to do e-commerce. And then by night, my Batman-ish alter ego is the Geek at Arms of Betsy Code. I say Geek at Arms because I just turned 35 and I'm still like 20 years younger than the average executive director. So, like executive director is a weird, title for it anyway. But yeah, that's what I do. I come from a military and junior enlisted military background with a focus on not doing anything technical at all. I used to bring a Rocket M4 and M9 every day to work, 12, 14-hour shifts.
Oh.
And then, after the recession, got out the military. During the recession, got out the military, realized that everybody on the outside that was doing better than we're doing better than most, all were in tech. So, I was, trade that M4 carbine for a MacBook Pro, never look back.
That's great. So how did you get into programming specifically? Like what led into getting into like being a developer?
Well, ending being a developer pretty much was like I said, I was out the military, having trouble getting a job during the Great Recession. Saw a commercial about ITT Tech at the
Mm-hmm.
time. I think
Okay.
they're dead and gone.
Yeah.
They said something about databases, and I was like, "What's a database about?" And I'd already been seeing like, oh, all the people that are you know living pretty okay are in tech, so I need to transition to that. And I went to Barnes and Nobles, which is I need to go back. I need to start back going to Barnes and Nobles because I've fallen off my BNN trips. Uh, we would go there, and I just picked up a book on databases. Came home, struggled through it, pushed through, learned a bunch of stuff. Ended up getting my first job, actually, ironically, with the exact same type of organizations that were telling me I wasn't like employable at the time because they had hiring freezes. So
Hmm.
even though I I had military skills, the skills that I had weren't they had hiring freeze for. But then when I learned how to do tech, my first job was government because I was a veteran who knew how to code. So I was a database analyst, joining the databases of the craziest systems I've ever seen that basically track all of everybody's criminal stuff, just to see if people get access to our like nation's waterways, so they weren't terrorists or anything. And I spent like a year doing that, and then I discovered front end, and for the most part, since I discovered front end, I never looked back.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome. Well, again, really appreciate you hanging out with us for a little bit tonight. We got a whole bunch of questions we want to get through, and so we're just going to kind of rapid fire some of these questions, and then we'll trim them up for the podcast and video on YouTube later on. Already got a couple of folks dropping by in chat. What's up, everybody? Um, and just want to mention too, if you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, you can definitely drop questions and comments on there. We will address those kind of in real time. But if you want them to show up over here in this panel, you will need to come over to Twitch. And so just go to twitch.tv/Ian Douglas 736 and you'll be able to actually see your question show up over here. You will need a free Twitch account to do that, but you're welcome to register. But if you do ask a question on Facebook or LinkedIn, I will see those and I will address those as part of our stream as we go. So please feel free to drop those questions in as well. All right. So we got Jerome's background. So let's dive into some questions here. Well, actually, tell us before we do that. Tell us a little bit more about Vets Who Code and what kinds of folks do you get involved with as part of that organization? And this is like side interest. This isn't like your day job, right? So tell us a little bit more about
No,
like.
I mean, it's it's like kind of like my life's work, but kind of like it's like my side quest that
Okay,
I'm trying to go through while I'm going through the quest of code. Like my goal is to move to Vets Code full time, but while
nice.
I'm doing that, I want to get the experience that you just can't, the experience you can't buy, right? Like
Mm,
you can't buy being taught how to code by a FANGAM, a big tech level software engineer,
right.
right? That's something that you have to earn, right? So that's one of the things I'm bringing over to my organization, right?
Gotcha.
So Betsu Code is an open source 501c3 nonprofit that was the first remote nonprofit in technology. I mean, in America, that focuses on training veterans, regardless where they are, how to become software engineers. I started this after there was a situation back home, my hometown, and I had to help a friend who worked at Catholic Charities help another veteran, and I ended up raising $10,000 in 27 hours with that
Wow,
family, and people
that's
would
awesome.
not let me like go back to sleep without doing other things. So that happened in May of like 2013, and next year I started teaching veterans in 2014. So like yeah, that's how Mexico started. Um, the type of people I because I don't do the because I'm from the military and I know how to make elite teams, I don't do the free code camp 100 devs type thing.
Mm,
I do the let's make quality software engineers and focus on growing them from re-entry to retirement. And
mm,
that's what our team focuses on. We don't want to make you go have you go through 12 weeks and have you go through 12 weeks on our curriculum that we made sure that with our data tool that it's the bet that you're only learning the things you absolutely need to learn how to code. To learn how to get a job. We want you to come back when you want to become a mid-level engineer, when you become a senior engineer, or you want to transition from product to DevOps, or when you want to transition from DevOps to data engineering. Right?
okay.
That's that's what we focus on, right? I want to be there, and I think that's the kind of thing that makes me very, proud. Like I've been there for engagements, cross planet moves, everything. It's been, first babies, everything. I think it's because of how we do it. I can see the same troop come back 3 4 times
Mm,
through every step of their career, and I'm like that mother during Christmas watching the kids open their gifts whenever I see a veteran come through and like I want to get to this next step, like who can help me, which people you recommend for mentors and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
There's no greater field than that, so like that, that's how we do it. We have our curriculum, but then we also we have a really strict mentorship and pairing paradigm. like you know we I come from the because like I said, have experienced elite teams.
Mm,
There and tech is a social, you know, a social industry. It's not what people think it is, just you alone in a room coding. It's very
mm,
social. So we have excuse the language, we have what we call a shooter spotter practice when it comes to like pair pair programming
okay,
and a very pairing first culture.
cool.
So whoever is more senior is the person who does the spotter work, right? So I'm the person who for me, I'm walking and talking you through what you need to be doing. I'm researching for you so you can focus on the
Right, right,
keyboard and you can get those keystrokes in for the junior, right?
right.
Like that. So the junior is the shooter. They're on the keyboard. They're coding. The spotter, they are, which would be the more senior person. They're helping them get through that,
Yeah.
solve that problem. I believe in that doing having a pairing first culture because I think codes most for-profit and non-profit code schools have it wrong because I'm like this isn't a competition when it comes to getting a job. It's
Hmm.
80% of
Right.
success for a first-time software engineer is from like their social equity and their relationships. So it doesn't make sense to create a competitive environment where
Yeah, I
you
agree.
feel like you're in competition with the person next to you.
Yeah.
So like that, things like that. Like I think that's the best part of Mexico for me. One of the best parts is that I get to just sit here and look at things through the lens of the greatest soldiers, airmen, marines, and and navy. I was because I don't want to say seamen, but there you go. I said it. Now someone's gonna put it on a blooper.
It's a thing. It's fine.
Uh, yeah, I mean that's what they're called. It's a horrible name, and United States just change it. But like the greatest combat units on the planet are not made in silos. They're made as cohesive units.
For sure.
So I was like, why not treat coding like that? And I think
Yeah.
the 94% success rate speaks for itself. Like we're an organization that in the past 7 years has raised about $100,000, but we've put
Awesome.
$300 million in salaries
Wow. Economy.
into the nation's economy. So it's like
Sweet.
got to be doing something, right? And so
Hmm. Hmm.
focusing on the people, pairing first,
That's great.
trying to treat it like it's an elite team.
Yeah, and for those that do pair programming, we would typically, like in the tech realm, we would typically call it driver navigator, where the driver's on the keyboard and the navigator's the one, kind of doing the spotter versus the driver, which you would call the shooter. Just as far as like
Yeah, but
lining
think
up
of
the
like
terminology, but yeah.
who does who does navigation anymore? We all use Google Apps and Apple. We use Google Maps and Apple
Right.
Maps now. Like, when's the last time somebody read a map while you were driving? Like that.
True.
I
It's
think
it's
early
been
two
it's been a minute.
thousands.
Yeah, I remember doing a ton of that as a kid, like just doing the little grid coordinates of like, we want to go to this town that's going to be in this box. It's like, well, where's that box? And you go find it on the map. Yeah, good times, good times. All right, well, let's dive in on some of these questions. And again, if you're watching on LinkedIn or Facebook, feel free to drop questions on those platforms. I will be paying attention to those as we go. If you're on Twitch, your question will show up here in the interface. Um, we'll start with one from a user called Tech Dinosaur. What kinds of cool skills do you think vets bring to tech besides things like discipline and leadership?
Well, those are soft skills, but other skills that veterans bring, I mean, to bring tech is, teamwork, which is another ways push on.
Hmm.
But when you really get down, it really depends on the managers around them, right? Like you have to understand the culture to really get to see what a veteran brings to it because you don't know what we can truly how we can truly be on the force multiplier on your unit or your on your team. I say unit, so that's like what we say in like military terms.
Hmm.
But yeah, you truly don't know what a veteran can bring to your team if you're not understanding our culture. I spoke about you about Erin and how she was explosive ordnance disposal, and people can't understand how someone with experience of taking apart bombs could be in tech. But I was like, well, she has to understand her user better than anyone on the planet
For sure.
because if she doesn't understand her user, she and other people die. What
Mm.
other industry that you have that is other part of tech that you have or industry on the planet that you have that mirrors that? User research, user experience.
Yeah.
That was perfect. And now she's in user experience and having the time of her life because someone understood that culture and was able to look beyond the words, right? Because I lived and breathed with these people. So that, I mean, it depends on, I mean, the blanket ones are teamwork, leadership, discipline, um, not being afraid to mess up, work ethic, right? Because you can be disciplined and have crappy work ethic, right? It's
Right.
saying, not being afraid to fail. Like, in the military, failure is, I mean, failure in training. You fail in training, so you succeed in combat, right? And that's the
Mm.
same type of mentality that you have
For
to
sure.
have in coding. I see so, I mean, 80%, which is why I do a pairing first practice. 80% of the people that get nervous when they're doing pair programming, myself included, when I was doing interviews when I was younger, was because hadn't gotten comfortable with like failing in front of people like at first in school. But when I looked at it like, oh, this is just like sparring or going through drills back in the military.
Hmm.
Once I took that mentality, I got comfortable doing pairing in front of people. I got comfortable with my code interviews because I was like, oh, I've done this 100 times just with different tools.
Yeah, for sure.
And once you wrap your head around that, you're like, oh, all right, yeah, makes sense,
Yeah.
cool, whatever. It's just another person that's hoping that I don't screw up, and that's why I focus on practicing, that. So like I feel like it's a you should focus on having your experience mimic reality as close as possible, so that it's okay, so that you fail often when you practice, so that when you go live, as we say in the military,
Yeah.
you succeed, right? So like that, that type of mentality is what you get from veterans, right? Like
That's cool.
part of 100% of veteran of VWC's success rate is thinking like that. Try to get as close to IRL, like how is it to be at a tech company as possible, not the
Mm.
cute funsy stuff, right? Like how
Oh, well, do
back
you play
when
ping
the world
pong?
was open. Yeah, everybody has a hoodie, and we're gonna do
Mhm.
pajama day. Like what? Like
Right.
that doesn't teach me how to do like write JavaScript. What's gonna happen here?
You mean you mean the military doesn't have pajama day? Psh.
Unfortunately, not. So, everybody wears the same uniform with their names on
Yeah,
it.
close enough. All right, well, let's dive in on some of these questions. So we got quite a few questions. We'll just see how many we can get through. We'll try to cap them at like 3 to 5 minutes each, and we'll just kind of keep an eye on time and want to be respectful of your time too, Jerome. So let me know, like signal me or something if you're like, hey, I got to bounce. That's totally all right.
I'm
But
I'm off. So let's go.
all right, cool.
MLK though. So
All right. Well, the first anonymous question we got: do companies ever employ bait and switch tactics when they post, like where they post a job, but then during the interview switch your role to some other job? Have you ever seen that in practice, Jerome? I got something that's similar to that with my own recent job hunt, but let's hear from your perspective.
I haven't seen that in practice. What I have seen, and this is based on our paradigms at VWC, what I've seen is a company like you so much that they change the rec to
Hmm.
fit your skill set so they can still bring you in.
Yeah.
I've seen it at big companies, like the top 50 companies. They will do that. They will have you go through the interview loop, and they will like you so much that they will change the rec. And unfortunately, you might be that person on the other side, right? Where someone goes through the interview, and then but they already know who they want, but they have to interview at least one person. So they pick the person who's the weakest at the stack to interview that person before they bring you in, right?
Hmm.
So
Right.
I mean but that's part of I think someone said it best. An early stage programmer said it best on Twitter about 2 3 days ago. Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Hmm.
And it's one of those things where we have to focus on. All right, now that you know this, how are you going to make sure you're that developer or
Right.
you're
Right.
that engineer that they like so much? They're going to go back and like, you know what, we'll change the rec and still bring you in. And
For sure.
I mean,
For sure.
I've seen experience. I had a troop down. I don't know that happened to, but the hiring manager, the person who was going to be his manager, not the hiring manager, once he had an offer extended to him, the person who's going to be his manager was coaching him through the offer to like make sure he got the most money. He was like, so to get this to match what you really want, they're not going to be able to budge on the they're not going to be able to budge on the what was it? Yeah, on the salary, but they will be able to budge a lot on the
Like the
bonus.
equity and
So
stuff.
as for
Yeah.
yeah, no, he said the cash bonus. He was like,
Oh,
get as
okay.
much of the cash bonus as you can. Make sure they put in case we get back from like COVID or something. Make sure they put a what was he said, a moving stipend or something in there. And I was
Okay.
like, wow, that dude was like hella helpful. Like that's gonna be your
Hmm.
boss. I was like, I want a boss like that. That's
For sure.
cool.
For sure.
Uh,
One of my recent interviews, they basically said, here's the offer, and I can't tell you what to do, but you probably want to negotiate that a little bit. I'm like, yeah, okay. So that was pretty funny. And someone asked in chat whether I got bait and switched. I didn't get bait and switched, but what happened on my recent job hunt is I was going for one particular role at a company, and throughout the interview, just like Jerome was saying, like sometimes they realize like, hey, based on your skills, like we really want to switch you over to this instead. And sometimes it's a different role, sometimes it's a level up, sometimes it can be a level down as they interview you and realize like, hey, you applied for like a really super senior level role, but we want to bring in a less senior role. And so it's not really that it's bait and switch. They're just trying to find the best fit for you. And you know that you're making a
Yeah,
good impression on the company when they're willing to make that change midstream as part of your interview, instead of just be like, you know what, you applied for this role and it's not like you're not qualified for it, so we're just gonna like reject you outright. If they like you enough, they're gonna figure out where else you do fit in. Yeah, go ahead, Jerome.
yeah. I was gonna say you got to think of you have to think. I think the biggest issue with it is that we are designed to think linear in a linear stance when
Mhm.
everything happens in a dynamic stance, right? Like
Right.
it's all these moving pieces are going on at all times around you. So you have to think about what's going on their side. It's like chess, right? Like you know, like hiring takes a lot of time and energy, right? And the biggest thing is you want to get the most bang for your buck, right? When you're hiring, you want someone that is, they're not gonna, leverage the fact they got you, and then you're out the. They don't want you to. They don't. They hope to get the person that's going to be there for a year or 2 years and out. They want someone that's going to be there at least 3 years, because you have to think of it from a hiring perspective. If I'm on the other side and I'm talking to you.
Mhm.
What I'm going to be like, Mr. Douglas. Here's my problem, right? I know that for the first year they're going to be here. It's going to be mostly about onboarding and getting into our system. So that first year is a financial loss. You're not going to know our systems and things well. It's going to be more training you up. So what I'm trying to do within 12 to 16 months is get you trained up so you eventually become a fiscally viable resource in our organization.
Right.
If half of that time that you're at the company you're gone, then I look like an asshole, right?
Mhm.
I don't want to be that guy. So that is how people. That's how come hiring is so like tough. Essentially you're getting people who, when it comes to our industry, you're getting people who on median have lower, do not have the same amount of not as experience, education requirements for their salary demands as other jobs, and then you have to try to entice them to stay um, long enough to actually be impactful and
Mhm.
balance the books, right?
Right.
Because what's the easiest way to get a job in tech? Already having a job in tech.
For
You
sure.
may take that
Yeah.
shitty $50,000 job just to go and get this $110,000 job, right? So that is what and how you have to think of it when you have to think of it on their side and my side. I mean, as George St. Pierre would say, is you want to put all the odds on your side, right? So you want to be that person that fits in perfectly what they're looking for from a cultural and technical standpoint, as much as possible, right? You want to do that 70-30% rule, right? I look at it as you don't want to have to level change or adapt more than 30% in your career unless there's like a drastic change in technologies. Like, and that's a thing that's helped me. So like
Mhm.
that's how you want to think of it from the whole process.
Right. I like to think of that 70-30 split slightly differently, where it's like I bring skills where I'm confident in like 70% of this job role, and 30% of it scares the
Yeah.
pants off me, because I know that I've got learning to do. But at the same time, that's what's going to keep me at that job. If I walk in where I've got 100% of the skill for that job, and I don't feel like I'm going to grow, I'm going to learn, like I may not stick around as much. I'm going to get bored. But if there's something for me to learn, and this is just me personally, if there's something for me to learn in some sort of growth area that I know I want to focus on as part of that job, that's what's going to like really kind of make me chase that job. So cool. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Let's move on to the next question here. A recruiter called to schedule a feedback meeting after a technical challenge. Is that good or bad? Does it mean I didn't get the job? What do you think, Jerome?
Man, okay. Most of the time, I mean, is this a technical recruiter? If it's a non-technical recruiter giving first of all, whether it's good or bad or you didn't get a job, I wouldn't worry because they're just regurgitating what the other person said, right?
True.
Um, because I have one of the top recruiters on in the country on my board, and I asked him what was what's the education level of like becoming a recruiter. He's like knowing how to read, and I was like, that's not comforting at all. He's like, most recruiters are like failed athletes that they need a job after college. I was like, damn, that's horrible. Um, so when you think about it, so when I'm thinking about that, I'm like, does it sound good? People don't give technical feedback to the recruiter unless they're not gonna hire you, because the recruiter isn't the person that's gonna. You don't want the technical feedback from somebody that's not technical. It's gonna be
Yeah.
blanket. You're not gonna really get anything good or impactful from it. Like so, I wouldn't go in. I mean, I would hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Hmm.
But I
Same.
mean, I hate to say that, but it's just facts.
Yeah.
You're getting technical feedback from the least technical. Like this is the person that if you're a front end developer, you just put a bunch of pretty colors and make the website look good, and they think you're shooting for the job,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's scary.
I think you're right on point there. I think it's not necessarily bad. I mean, sometimes that kind of language could just be like, hey, you know what, you did well, we're gonna keep moving on. Like it could just be something as simple as like, yeah, the feedback was good, we're just gonna like move on from there. So it depends a little bit on how they worded the message. But yeah, like Jerome said, I would prepare for the better. Like how'd you word it? Like hope for the best, prepare for the worst. But yeah, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell like without knowing like the full wording of like how they left that message for you. But uh, cool. Next question, we had an interviewer started asking very critical questions about how I designed some code because I didn't account for error conditions. How would you handle this? So in one of my recent interviews, I basically had to like call an API, and I was like collecting some JSON data. During that interview, I actually said like, hey, in a real production system, I would be trying to catch exceptions in Python for, you know, if the endpoint couldn't get hit or if I was getting some kind of error back, because I want to make sure that how I process that data and give a response to my user, I want to make sure I give them a good user experience no matter what happens, for how I'm calling that code. And so I just explained that during the interview. But if you just write what we call happy path, which is like, let's assume it's always going to succeed, and that's all you talk about, and you don't talk about like, hey, there could be error conditions. If you have an interview that gets critical about that kind of thing, A, they're a bad interviewer, but B, it does kind of talk a little bit about like you do need to describe a little bit more on that technical side. But when it comes to like junior, senior kind of levels, I wouldn't expect an entry level dev to have all the answers about, catching exceptions and catching all those error conditions. Like I'm probably not going to have that expectation anyway. But if the interviewer is like being critical in the interview to you about not addressing that kind of stuff, I would say if you're at a senior level, you should have talked about it. But if you're not at a senior level and you don't talk about it and they get critical about it, they're just a jerk. What do you think, Jerome?
I don't agree with that.
No?
I
All right.
think that you have to prepare for the other parts, like for blended interviews, right? Coming from my personal experience, I
Sure.
was in an interview, one of my interviews in my Microsoft group. Sweetest guy on earth was the behavioral interview, and they blended the behavioral interview with a part of the technical interview. So this guy's asking me questions that are super high level, super scale, like at a scale like my biggest tech thing. I've worked in scale of like time zones. This was on a scale of countries, and holy
Mm-hmm.
crap, right? And he's being critical, and he's being abrasive, and all this stuff,
Hmm.
because they want to know how you deal and handle under pressure, right? All right, you said you can handle pressure. Let's really see if you work well under pressure. So this, you know, now that I think about that and I know it, like, I've been through that personally myself, and I just got lucky passing it, because I looked at myself as like, I'm like, you know, combat. I always remind myself I'm a combat professional. The worst person can always kick this person's ass. So like that's how it's immature, it's toxic, but some days you need to like every once in a while you just need to go to the bad parts of you to be able to embrace the good parts of you.
Yeah.
So I haven't experienced that myself. I'm like, you know what? I think that if you remain calm, if you answer that person's questions to the best of your ability, if you're instead of trying to struggle and come off the top of your dome with things that you do not know,
Mm.
say I don't know, but I will find out, and here's where I'm going to go to find out. I have an answer like that. Saying it I don't know is fine. Saying I'm
Yeah.
going to find out, I'm going to research via this, especially if you already have the resource on mind. Like, where do you go for that? like, man, that's like 10 points for Gryffindor, right? So like knowing where to find it out. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd, right? I'm like a little bit of gangster, a little bit of nerd. I'm all over the place. So when you have that type of stuff, that it helps because I want a person who can handle being critiqued, like from a jackass, right? That's our goal, right? Because not every, especially now in this era, we are having, in tech, a you know crazy change where the Steve Ballmer types and the Satya types are starting to converge and start meeting in mid-senior levels together. And
Sure.
you're dealing with a mid-senior engineer, you don't know which one you're going to get.
Yeah, but
So you
I
have
think I
to
think from a theme of the message though. Sorry to interrupt. I think the theme of the message though is like if they're like berating you in the interview, like if they're being like harshly critical, where it sounds like they're being like aggressively critical. I think that's kind of what I got from the theme of the question, as opposed to just like
I
if I'm asking you questions to make you think deeper about it, that's one thing. But if I'm like being
see.
aggressively like harsh on you for not doing something particular way, that's kind of what I was reading into that question.
I was reading into it the exact same way and having, like I said,
Yeah.
that part of I've had that,
Yeah.
and I understand. Oh, well, you're a senior, you're having that at a big company, so knowing but I know that happens because they're trying to do the behavioral,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And it's not the mind games, right?
Right.
It's always a mind game. You always remember that this is not a personal thing. This is a mind game. That don't absorb it. Don't take it personal. I understand it's hard because especially if you're American, you were raised on a capitalist society that focuses on taking, you put in your worth, and they say how much money you earn. I get it,
Hmm.
but you have to also remember this is a mind game. There are tactics and tricks and things being moved in at play that you are not always keen to, which is why you have to always be calm and assess the situation, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know, like I said, if I had reacted harshly to that, I want a job because you don't talk to me like that, yada yada yada. No, if I reacted harshly to that and been unprofessional, I can't get the job because you know what, they gotta trust me.
Sure.
I'm gonna in my job, they have to trust me to work outside of the pond and talk high level tech stuff with other software
Sure.
engineers
But if
in
you're
other
being but if you're
companies.
being treated like that in the interview though, I mean, you're there to interview them as just as much. And if you kind of get a bad vibe of like, I don't want to work with that person, doesn't it kind of play
That
both
was the
ways on
vibe
that?
I got.
Right, right.
That was the vibe I got. And then the first person I talked to was that person after I got the job. He said, "Hey man, yo, dude, I'm so sorry. Like, I just
Oh
had to do
wow.
that. I just want to say, yeah, it
Funny.
was, that's, he was, I was like, yo, like, you think I was, after I got off that call, I was like, screw that guy. Like, I absolutely was. Like, I'm not going to sit here, no, I was pissed,
Hmm.
but I kept my composure and I made sure,
I
I
wonder
wasn't
how
going
many
in the opposite beginning way.
I wonder how many people would actually walk away from the company or walk away from that interview process because something like that would happen, though. Like I know, like some people are just naturally going to have thicker skin than others, and they'll just kind of brush that off, or like you say, like just they'll kind of absorb it and they'll deal with it, and they'll not completely shrug it off, but they'll be
I
respectful in response about it, but like they'll carry on kind of thing. Versus like some people are just like, nah, I don't like if that's a representative of the company, then I don't want to work there.
Well, like I said, once again,
Yeah,
I have to deal. And part of that
sure.
job is I'm going to be programming alongside a high level of mids and seniors and other companies. They
Yeah,
can't control who is on the
true.
other side of
Very true.
outside the company. So you have to learn. That's part of true discipline. I cannot control you. I
Mhm.
can only control how I react to you.
Yeah, good point.
So
True.
that's where like the true maturity and leveling up comes from, right? Like, okay, this person, just because this person's being, this person's being doing some stuff in this interview that should throw me off my. You know what? I'm gonna tighten my game up even tighter because I want to make sure that this person, oh, you couldn't shake me, right? I
Yeah,
want
it's good.
at the end, I'm like, no, this dude, I want you to have a bad attitude and still know how to do my shit. Like that's what I want. I want you to know that I am messing with the best of the best. Like, okay, it is what's up. All
Yep.
right. Like, that's the mentality you have to have, regardless of whether you're entry level, junior, or whatever. Because these are not titles in regards to skill. These are titles in regards to experience, right?
Hmm.
Because you have an experience in the. I one of my highest performing like programmers was he skipped straight to senior on his first job, and after coming through cohort. So like based upon what you can truly do, and this wasn't a small company. He did this at Verizon, so he literally jumped to senior software engineer on his first after his interview process at Verizon in Texas. So like that's what I don't think about these titles. You're a software engineer, right? That's how I look at it. I'm a software engineer. I don't think of senior. I don't think of mid. I only use senior software because people love titles, but I don't care about that. I don't even think of myself as a software engineer half the time. Cause I like colors and stuff, right? Like I'm just a dude that likes doing cool stuff on the internet. Like people like for like first 3 years, people ask me what I was. I'm like I do dope shit on the web. Like that's what I do.
Right, right.
That's all I need to do. I help people put food on plate for families.
I'm,
That's
I'm
my skill set.
I'm very much a back-end developer. My motto has always been, I'll make it work, you make it pretty. Like I'm not visually oriented whatsoever. Like I can maybe pick a color scheme. That's like the scope of my skills. But like, you want me to draw something? What? I hope you like stick figures. That's all I got.
Oh,
So
right. Oh, what make you think front ends actually draw? Like, no, I don't know. You put a pen and paper in my hand. Ugh, okay. Oh, no, I need technology. I need Zeppelin. I need Figma.
sure, sure, sure. Yeah,
I need something to make my mocks. Like, nah,
yeah, for
give me
sure.
Photoshop or something on it. So,
Yeah. Cool. Let's dive into a couple of questions about leak code. This was kind of two different questions that I kind of lumped together. A, is it worth spending time on leak code hard problems? And second one, is it worth spending money on a leak code premium account? Jerome, what's your
no and
experience
no.
with okay, I was gonna say, what's your experience been with leak code? Do you advise your vets to like even bother grinding on leak code? Like, what do you do about like, getting them ready for leak code or rather technical challenges and so on?
Oh, this is such a murky one, but I fucking love it. All right, so here's full disclosure. Like I'm a hacker rank all star, right? So like while I do have my veterans who do that stuff, either go to hacker rank or go to our channel where we have our own code challenges. But
Okay.
full disclosure, I'm not a fan of any of them. Because I've done like maybe 2 hacker rank problems, and they were like, "Yo, you're a hacker rank all star." I'm like, I don't think so, but all right, cool,
After
whatever.
two, that's great.
Yeah, I was like, okay, whatever. Harsh reality is, I think this code challenge process has become a thing with juniors, engineers at all levels have gotten into this rat race of I, it's like boxing, right? If you're going to do what everyone else is doing, you're going to get the same results as everybody else. But if you're not focusing on a psychological or keeping a psychological dynamic with your opponent, which is the company, then you're going to lose.
Mm,
Most of my interviews have I like Microsoft is the first time I have ever gone through a full like scale interview process because someone at Microsoft, Scott Hanselman, taught me a very long time ago that what you need to do is answer all the questions prior to them even picking up the phone or putting up their
mm,
keyboard and emailing you. What you
interesting.
want to do, you want to stay away from the whiteboard and put all the odds on your side. What that means, for me, that meant cranking out enough stuff to let people know how my personality was. So I already answered all the behavioral stuff, cranking out how I thought through problems. So that answered all the coding stuff, talking technically. So that answered all that can they speak the language
Okay.
stuff, right? I build my career up around products and actions and activities, doing things that have impact. So that way I don't have to do the frivolous things that, you know, are really don't impact you because harsh reality is when you go through those coding challenge, you're not really learning how to code. You learn how to code for an interview.
Yeah.
You don't learn how to code for a
Right.
product because coding for a product requires learning how to code and make business decisions at the same time. And hard and like a sneaky little secret that they don't tell you. Most hiring managers would much rather prefer a programmer that knows and that understands business logic as well as coding logic than a person that can code for an interview. And that's what I tell people that left and right. You hear people tell people that all over the internet, and it's so funny because you'll the top 10% of the programmers on the internet that and content creators will be telling all saying the same thing, and then you'll still find a junior else scream something about leak code. I'm gonna be like, you know what? All code challenges are truly garbage, and if you really want to jump to the front of the line, build something impactful that people will use. Um, Coming from a front end perspective, what does that mean? Like, so this is gonna be from a HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React process, right? It's gonna be from that point of view. So first things first, don't react all the things. Only react the thing that needs to be react. What that means is that if it does not handle data in real time for the user, don't use React on it. Use the platform. Use HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Last week, I had a meeting with a different CEO every day of the week. Their number one complaint was that every junior that comes through their doors is reacting all the things. Like, why am I getting HTML in my React? Why I thought this was supposed to do something else, and I'm just getting static pages in React. And then I'll get like a JavaScript calculator in there. So first things first, don't react to all the things. Use the platform. Second thing, understand that you are not building a portfolio. You are building a product. What that means is that a product has different users that focus. First page, your above fold content, all that other stuff, that is for the user persona of a recruiter, because recruiters don't know how to code. They are, they're looking at everybody's stuff 3 seconds. They got you got to catch their eyes and make them want to pause. They just want to go through your stuff. Now, you also got to have data capture on that first page. So you got to have a place where you can get their email, a place where they can, use Twilio's API, or make a chat bot where they can chat with you real time. It comes to your phone, you texting them back, or you have a number that they can text directly, get all that stuff. Like, that's what you want for the recruiter. Then you want to build that product, which is your portfolio, because you are the product, you're selling yourself. You want to keep building it out via, talking about building different projects on it that are impactful to you. A person who does this really well, Cassidy Williams. She makes you grow.
Cassidy's awesome.
Shorteners.
Yeah.
Monica Powell is another one.
Yep.
Both of them, they know how to take their portfolios and extend it to the point where it is a useful product to them, and they learn things on the way, and they can tell you how what they built and why they built it, and it amplifies their worth to a hiring manager. Companies, Cassidy now, she spends more time advising companies now than building products. So, like, yeah, that's what you want to get. If you think like how Cassidy thinks, like, in my opinion, Cassidy is like the thought process that every junior should have. Like, Cassidy and Monica, like, if every junior software engineer, regardless of their walk of life, thought like Cassidy Williams and Monica Powell, we would not have these type of problems that we have. So, like, that's what you need to think of. You stop thinking of your portfolio as, stop talking about leak code. Think of your whatever you're trying to build as a thing that is as an extensible product of yourself. That's the entire focus, to sell yourself to no less than three different users. User persona 1 is recruiter. User persona 2 is the technical interviewer. User persona 3 is your team, right? So you want to be able to create something that will create things that answer questions of your behavior, so the team can feel comfortable with you. Catch the eyes of the recruiter, because recruiters like shiny things, like they're like cats, right? Oh, look, diamond, like, oh, bam. And technical interviewer, like, oh, this person actually knows their stuff. You get a lot further than that than wasting your time on leak code, right? I've lived it, I've seen it. I'm not going to give you advice that isn't going to help you win, because I mean, it's the same. I've never had to do a leak code thing for a job, because I put so much value out there forward. I've had one job interview where all they asked me literally was, "What's the file structure after you type create React app?" Like, that's just how much value I put. They knew that they wanted me.
Right.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah, and in a lot of my own job hunt, recently applying for like DevRel kinds of roles is like, well, here's my whole portfolio of like talks I've given, conferences I've spoken at, slide deck presentations. Here's like an archive of videos recorded of me teaching a class, doing a workshop, blah, blah, blah. Here are all these open source code repos I've contributed to or that I author. And then, yeah, a lot of the interviews are just conversational at that point of like, all right, what do you want to be doing? All right, let's see if we can like make a role for you over here. Those are the best kinds of conversations. Like I tell people on the stream all the time, an interview needs to be conversation, not interrogation. But there are still companies out there that want you to go through like some amount of like, hey, demonstrate that you can do the job. And so for like in my own job hunt, for example, for these DevRel jobs, they're like, hey, can you put together like a really quick presentation on something? And I did one recently. It was like a dad joke generator deployed on Docker up to like Google Cloud Run and, do some monitoring on Datadog or something. And I put it together as like a little 15-minute video of like, here's something I could expand into like a full-on workshop of like how to build an API, how to deploy it, how to like do monitoring and stuff with it. And they loved it. And I'm like, I could have given you something super polished, but I wanted to take a risk and show you like, this is what I can do in like 16 hours of turnaround. They're like, that was great. And they loved it. But there are companies out there though that they want you to grind on leak code because they want to see you demonstrate some amount of problem solving.
Unless you're gonna pay me, I'm not gonna do it. Like I believe in the Bruce Lee philosophy. Like, yeah, every moment that I waste doing something I hate, I can be getting better at the things I love. Right.
That's a good point.
I literally make people pay me for things like that. Like, is there like an Amazon? And you'd be amazed how many times if you talk, like, is there a way? Is there some form of compensation? And I'm like, can I get an Amazon gift card or something like that? You're like, oh wait, what? Yeah, you can do that. Starbucks, yeah, I'll do it for $100 Starbucks gift card. And you're gonna make me do this, like, because what you're making me prep for something that isn't true programming to show you my problem solving skills when I have a plethora of work out there to show you how I solve problems. So for me to solve problems in this manner that's gonna make you comfortable, I would like some form of compensation, and that ends the conversation. Yeah. Luckily for me, I've only had to do that once, but
yeah,
I've done it twice. It worked once, and another person, I don't think we can go forward. I was like, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, and yeah, I think leak code's not going away anytime soon, unfortunately. But I'm right there with you. Like leak code's garbage, and like having to grind on leak code in order to get a job sucks. But in our industry, there is some element of like we need you to demonstrate at least a little bit in front of us that you know how to code, and I get that from a business perspective, and I think a lot of entry level devs face that maybe a little bit more. But even as a senior dev, I've been doing this almost 26 years. And they're like, yeah, can you write some code? I'm like, yes, I can write some code. Like, have you seen my job history? I've had like a dozen jobs, many of them for years. Like, if I was incompetent, they would have fired me. Like, yes, I can code. Like, do you really need me to like sit down and do this? Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's that. I think that's one thing about DevRel that I really, really like is, well, for the most part, when it comes to most DevRel companies is, you're able, like, the way you move, you're able to show your DevRel, because DevRel is essentially a stream of marketing. You are taught how to sell your skills in a manner that's easily digestible. And I think to like people from all walks of life, right? You can that's your job, is to build things to show the value of the thing that you're talking about to people, right? Mm-hmm. And you learn how to talk to people from all walks of life. And I think if more entry and dream level engineers start paying attention to like how DevRels move and be like, because I tell my truth, I'm like, there's a whole industry that's showing you how to move. Even if you want to, if you don't want to be DevRel, you should at least move like DevRel, right? If you're trying to get a job, like if you're sitting here, because especially in veterans, we have a problem of it's damn near a pandemic in veteran community of like the qualified quiet, because we come from a community where you have to you are instinctually trained to trust the person right and left of you. So you do your job, your manager is going to take care of you. But that's not how it is in the civilian sector, right? You have to market yourself. So like literally 20% of my job is like getting veterans to have the bravery to like share their links on Twitter and stuff. It's hilarious. Like, I'm like, oh my God, y'all are killing me. This is so easy. Press the button. And like, that's what I want I wish every junior entry level like dev did was like move like DevRel. Like if you just move like DevRel, your career journey be so much better.
Yeah. Cool. This one might be a little bit shorter as far as an answer goes. How do you ask clarifying questions during a technical challenge, especially if the prompt is kind of vague? Do you think it's okay to ask those kinds of questions? Like if you don't really fully understand what it is they're asking you to do, like get them to explain it in
Absolutely.
different language, or like, how would you do that?
I would ask them to explain it in, I mean, pseudocode. I mean, you can do something like that. Ask them to explain it in pseudocode. Write it in pseudocode before you write it in code, and then like talk through it. Always talk through it. The thing is, those type of interviews is the more you talk, the better the better the person feels because you're asking for feedback throughout the thing. The red flag interview style that I hear all the time is when you just solve the problem and don't say anything. If you're not talking to the person and you're not
Yeah.
like treating it like you're on the team, making them feel involved, and they have, that's when they're like, I don't know. They're making it vague intentionally
They
for you
want
to
you they
ask
want you to ask
questions.
questions. Absolutely. Yeah. Like they're going to
Yeah,
leave out things
they
about,
want you.
like, hey, if you can find an answer, like give back an array of strings. Like, well, what if I don't find an answer? Like, what do you want me to send back? Like, they probably still want the same data type. Like they want an array, but like make it empty or something instead. So yeah, you got to ask those questions. When you mentioned pseudocode, like would you expect the interviewer to write the pseudocode, or you're going to write pseudocode based on what they're explaining? Like as the candidate
I'm
would
gonna
write it.
write the pseudocode. I'm
Hmm.
always because I'm gonna treat them as a teammate that is more senior, and I'm gonna be the shooter while they're the spotter.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna because my thing is I want part of your tactic in these interviews that y'all are talking about is you want to shift the mentality of the interviewer from interviewer to team member. You want them to see you as a part of your team. And so many people focus on you're the interviewer, I'm the interviewee. No, you're the interviewer and I'm the interviewee. My goal now is to make you feel like we're one to one. I'm the junior team member, you're the senior team member. How do I do that, right? It's all interviews are tactics. They're tactical. They are a dynamic relationship. If you try to keep it stoic and straightforward, 80% of it is that, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm trying to make it, see what people are saying, but no. My job, my goal when I'm in the interview, the whole time is I already want you to think I'm on payroll. The way we talking, the way we moving, the way we're like doing things, the way we're problem solving, the way I'm like, all right, bet, what about this? And they're like, I'm trying to, bring your guard down, make you think that I'm already on the team. You're like, I want you to I interview you on Thursday, you go into the office or you get in your Slack channel or a Teams meeting and you're like, dang, where's Jay at? Like, I want to talk. I was going to ask him how his day was. We talked about his dogs and his baby and stuff. And, he even made a little jokey pseudocode in there where he made a comment about his baby. And it's like, I want to ask him about that. And like, hey, yo, can we hire that guy? Because I want to talk to him about his baby. And like, you see the Captain America shields he had? Like, that's what I want to talk about, right? That's the name. That's a tactic, right? You want,
Mm.
like I said, you want to put all the odds on your side. Part of that is taking down their guard, right? You want them to want you, right? Because you want to get to that point where you can, fumble an interview and still get it. I've seen it plenty of times where a person has failed a technical and still got the job, right? Because they focused on solving the problem to the best of their ability. Because a lot of times technical is not focused on getting the right solution all the time. It's focused on how you think, how you work things through,
Right.
how far you work things through, how effective you work things through, how do we work well together? What's your energy like, right?
For sure.
That's
For
your
sure.
job. Your job is to solve all those questions, not solve can you solve X for Y, right?
Yeah.
This is not what that's
Mm.
about. Because and I think we as a culture have to be more transparent about that because juniors and seniors, the people that are talking about that, they haven't had enough experience to tell people about that. And that's kind of on us to be like, yeah, this is what they're really looking for. All right. They're not
Cool.
looking for just the answer. They're looking for how
It's a lot
how
about
you're
your
going to work with them
process.
and solve the answer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell folks that on the stream all the time, like that, especially when you're an entry level dev, for me as a hiring manager, it can be more about your process and your communication than whether you could actually write the code. Yes, I do want to see you write some code, and yes, hopefully it works. And if it, if you write good code and it works, that's like bonus points for me. But for an entry level dev where you're just coming out of like a boot camp or self taught or just coming out of college or university, like I don't even necessarily care about the quality of code that you write because you're an entry level dev. I've got senior level devs that are going to help make your code better. I just care, like, what is the process? Do you even have a process? Do you even follow a process? That's like the biggest thing, because when I give you a problem on the job, I want to know what kinds of steps are you going to take? Are you going to take a step back? Are you going to design it? Are you going to communicate about it? Are you going to ask questions? Or are you just going to like fumble in code for weeks on end, wondering what to do? Like, if you're immediately going to come back and say, hey, could you clarify this? Could you explain this? Like, I'm thinking about doing this part this way. Is that the right approach? Like, yes, ask those questions. That's your process. Because the interview isn't just can you write some code. It's also mimicking like this is what you're going to be like as an employee, and that's really going to set you apart in an interview is showing me what that process is and show me that you're going to be a good employee as part of that. Python Nate asked in chat, can Jerome talk about his Captain America shield in his profile picture?
Oh, my Captain America shield. I have so many around here, so I go grab.
You have more than one?
nearest one.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I mean, yeah, you always need more than one. So, yeah. So this is the big one, right? So, like, they call me Captain America Code because of what I do. So this is the big one. It's metal, of course. It has these right here, so I can put these on it. Put these on my arm, pull them off, pull it on.
It's hard to see that on the. Oh, there it is. Okay. Oh, it's like magnets or whatever to hang on to it. Very cool.
Yeah, magnets. So I put the straps on my arm. I can pull it off, put it on my backpack. I can do the same thing with. Like I can literally
That's
put
amazing.
it on my back, and then nerd stuff. But I have Captain America fridge, Captain America backpack, Captain America weight plates, Captain America shield. A dozen Captain America. I have so much Captain America. So I have Captain America boxing gloves. There's a lot of Captain America stuff around me.
That's awesome.
So, I'm not. I am a huge Captain America fan. I have Captain America comics and Funko Pops like lined up around my office, like all over, like all on this ledge. So I'm not.
I'm trying to think if I have any Captain Funkos. I want to go look.
I have like 100 of them, and people all over the country like send me like thank yous, Captain America comic.
That's sweet.
Stuff. It's the biggest cool thing on the internet. Like, yo, can I send you something Captain America I found? Some person's like, yo, I found a Captain America fidget spinner. I would love to send it to you. I was like, bet, please. I found a Captain America thumb drive. I'd love to send it to you. Probably not going to use it, but thank you.
yeah, for sure. I'm definitely not going to plug it into my computer and wonder what you infected me with. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's move on here. Next question we got: how do you solve system design problems? Can you give an example? And then a similar one: a recruiter wants me to do a database design interview. Is that like system design? So I've had to do some of these in the past. I like to approach system design like Bob Ross paints a painting. You start with really high level kind of description and you gradually get into detail. But you have to remember to like sort of like zoom in on the detail on lots of parts kind of at the same time. And so for example, the question might be like, how would you design like an object-oriented parking garage? Well, there's lots of parts of that. You've got the garage itself, you've got the entry gate, you've got a payment system, you've got lights, like all this kind of stuff, and how do all these different parts play in. But when Bob Ross paints a picture, yeah, like when Bob Ross paints a picture, he doesn't start with a happy little tree, but a lot of people they're like, oh, well, let's talk about the gate, and you're gonna push the button and the thing's gonna go up, but it's on a certain amount of time, and you spend so much time focusing on that one little detail that you forget about everything else. Or the other one that I hear a lot is, how would you design like a vending machine? And they're like, well, we got that panel with all the buttons and we got to take in the money. It's like, but what about the machine itself? Like you got the motors to turn the thing, to drop the snack. You get the little flap you got to reach in to get the snack. Maybe it's a refrigerated thing, so you need power. Like, don't forget about all the things. And so when I tell people when you're designing a system, like talk about the big components and then gradually get into smaller and smaller detail on each one, or ask the interviewer, like, is there part of this that you want me to dive in on? When it comes to database design, it can be a little bit different or a little bit similar, where you need to describe like these are the different tables I think I'm going to need. And then inside of these tables, these are the fields I think I'm going to need. And then for these fields, these are the data types I think I'm going to use. And like you're gonna start big and like gradually get into smaller and smaller detail. But by doing that, like Bob Ross paints the sky, and then he does the mountain, and then he does kind of the misty sort of foreground, and then he starts building like the big trees in the background, and then he gets into the, like the little bushes and the rocks and stuff like that. And you have to do system design kind of the same way, where you start with the big detail and you gradually focus in on smaller and smaller things, but you're kind of doing like all the things. But you can always ask the interviewer, like, hey, is there a particular part of this you want me to focus on now that I've described it at a really high level? Like, is there part of this that you want me to hone in on? I think that that's kind of an important thing to think about there.
You just use an Air Force veteran, that TI term painter to describe design. 100 points for Gryffindor.
All right.
Like, there you go. I don't have
That's
anything
great.
to say. Like, you did it perfect. And
That's cool.
10 extra points for using an Air Force veteran. Like, it's cool.
Yep, cool.
Fun story.
And shout out to
Bob
Coding with
Ross was in
James.
Air Force.
Appreciate the raid with 5 viewers. Thanks for dropping by. We're chatting with Jerome Hardaway from Vets Who Code, and we're just working our way through some Q&A around interview prep and so on. But yeah, that's my favorite analogy that, you know, when I was teaching myself, because I taught for 4 years at a code school here in Denver. And when I would tell students, like, they would be like, hey, you know, the recruiter wants to ask about systems design, like, what do I do? And like, you got to start big and like hone in on detail. But like, you know, I've seen so many people where I'll walk into the interview and say, hey, do the vending machine, and they're like, okay, we got this little button panel and we got like the coin slot, and they forget about everything else. It's like, okay, well, you built like one tiny little piece of this, or you do like an elevator system, and they're like, they focus on the panel buttons, like it's the UI that people tend to kind of get drawn into because that's what the end user is going to focus on. But you forget about the lift mechanism and the counterweights and like the cables and like how many elevators do you need and like what floors do you start them on? Does everything start at the ground floor in the morning because more people are coming into the building to start their day, and at the end of the day maybe start the elevator cars toward the top so that people don't have to wait as long to like get down to the bottom floor to leave, like all these different things that you can think of. And so you have to start at a really high level picture and like gradually work your way into detail from there. Cool.
Love it. Like I said, you did it right. You did it right, and you did it so I'm like, scrap. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Coding with James. Tell us about your stream. Thanks for dropping by. I appreciate the raid and bringing your viewers over. I will try to return the favor at some point. I'll give you a little shout out here. Go follow Coding with James as well. Coding with James. Go give James a follow there as well. Cool. Let's dive in another one. What's the best answer for why you switch jobs a lot in a short amount of time?
Really, it comes down to one or three things. It comes down to opportunity, culture, or circumstance, right? So, pretty much use that type of thing. I mean, which one? People love the idea of like opportunity. Oh, I switched jobs fast because I had opportunities to learn something exciting. Like, you know, I got into this job. I thought I was going to learn something. I was going to be focused on one thing. Turned out I was focused on another. And plus, you know, the opportunity arises. You know, somebody from this company that I really admired slid into my DMs, right? Like, that's what happened to me with Microsoft, like, straight up. My current manager, I was not looking for a job at the time. I actually just accepted a job, and he was like, yo, I think you should come work for me at Microsoft. And I was like, yo, I just started the gig. He's like, yo, forget those guys, you should come over here. I was like, yo, okay, what's up? Let's talk about this. It was going through this transition. I was really trying to get this job a chance. So I was like, these people are garbage, man. And like my manager sucks. And I was just like, okay.
Hopefully they're not listening to the live stream right now. Or maybe they are. Maybe that's okay too. Yeah.
I don't care. I didn't use their names. I use the company's name. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay. So I call him up. I'm like, all right, I'll think about it. And then I called him. I don't know if I should do this because y'all are like in the same circle, and I have this thing of birds of a feather. And this was kind of made me get out of enjoying Microsoft, right? I'm like, birds of the feather stick together, and he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna have like 5 black people from Microsoft like call you and hit you up, and you can ask any question you want." So this is the
Cool.
first time a manager, an engineering manager, has ever let me reverse interview them with people that look like me, and I was like,
That's
"Wow,
cool.
okay, you're not like that person at all. Cool, forget it. Like, all right, let's go." But I mean, that's one of the things. That's an opportunity you can't pass. That's a great reason, right? As long as you have the story of why, a quick way doesn't work. He's like, "Oh, I just wanted to." I'm like, "Okay, what are you just gonna want to with us?" Like, especially something like that. People love those type of stories because that's an opportunity. That is a question. That is a question that can become an endearing moment that'll give you a bigger opportunity at that
Hmm.
company, right? If you
Yeah.
try to answer, like I said, I think people spend too much time trying to like quickly get through the behavioral stuff so they can spend all their energy on the engineering part. No, that's a question that helps you. That's an ally forming question, right? That's actually a make or break question. You answer that question correctly, and it's usually about Like with women, it's going to be about compensation because women tend to get paid less, so they job hop and tech faster to catch up. A friend of mine, she used to work at Apple, Scarlett. She does that. Cher, I'm sorry, Cher Scarlett. She did a lot of hopping to get her her salary up to
Right.
what was like market value, right? So I understand. No, I got 2 kids. I job hop to quickly get my salary at the market value so I can take care of my kids. Yeah, oh, yo, I'm never gonna say you don't take care of your children. No one in the right mind, like, no, I say that, especially if I'm like the job that's gonna give you that, or culture. I found an opportunity that was mimicking the type of culture that I really wanted. Right? If I'm at say a company like Ramsey Solutions or something, and then comicbook.com, which is like my job, like my favorite front end job on earth, hits me up, I'm going to go like, no, that's the
That's a
culture. I want to be
no-brainer.
surrounded
Right.
by, yeah, that's a no brainer. Like that's still right now my favorite job. Like the first year of that job was like the best job on earth. I was working on comicbook.com while all the Avengers in-game stuff was coming out. I was getting all the cool free stuff. I was getting all the spoilers before people were getting them. I saw like in-game like 6 months before everybody. I loved it. So
Nice.
yeah, why would I not say? Why would I not go there? Right? I literally jumped teams. It's like, wow, no, I don't want this new manager. I want to go over there. Those guys. So like that's a good example. And like I said, circumstance. Oh, I had to move. I had a death in the family. I had a situation during the transition from Microsoft from that I had like I was moving and my dad had gotten diagnosed with cancer. Right. So I was doing a lot of back and forth between moving to Atlanta, going to Nashville for the old house, going to Memphis.
Right.
So like Memphis, like he's in remission now. Woo.
That's awesome.
But going through all that, like I had to like go back and forth and be like, circumstance. And Microsoft was the one that accommodated me the most, right? Yeah, I know this is like, what if I have to take care of my mom once if my dad passes? I know that Microsoft has resources for that. I know that like these are like things that you can talk about at an interview and stuff. And I think the problem with interviews is that people try to bring so little of themselves there to focus on
Mhm.
the technical aspect. You're not seeing like how you want to build those allies and allegiances
Yeah.
at the interview, right? So like I
Yeah.
think answering it quickly is a no go. That's a bad idea. That's the worst idea you can think of.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things to think about there. Like in my mind as a hiring manager, like yeah, I kind of want to hear the story about like what did you learn at that job? How did it make you better? For the next job or something like that. And one of the things that I talk about on the stream here is like at least you've made a move in your career in some direction because now when you kind of look around, you can see things from a different perspective and just realize like I thought I wanted to do this. I got there, realized that isn't what I wanted to do, but I spent some time, I learned some things, and now I'm pivoting and I went in that direction and I pivoted and now I'm in the going in the same direction as you as a company, and that's why I want to work here because I see all this opportunity for growth and this is what I want to do. But I think if you have too many of those, trying to sell that as your story can be a little tricky. It's like, well, how do you know this is really what you want to do and you're not going to change your mind 6 more months from now? But I get where you're coming from too, like from a job opportunity point of view to like get the raise, get the next title. A lot of people, that aren't good at negotiating or don't want to negotiate or they've been marginalized in tech, they feel like they got to jump to another company in order to like get that boost because they're not going to get it where they are. And it's a sucky thing about our industry that that has to happen. And
Harsh
yeah,
reality.
it is, but it's the reality of it for sure. Yep. Cool. All right, we got a couple more to get through. How you doing on time there, Jerome?
I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
GTG. Nobody's text me.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good to go. I'm not. Yeah,
All right. This is
they're
a little
they're, they're upstairs watching Death by Paradise. That's what they're
nice.
doing. Baby and my wife is upstairs. They're watching British drama.
Awesome.
Big
And you'd rather be on a live stream with me. All right, I appreciate that.
yeah.
Um, cool. This one's a little interesting. Have you ever hired somebody because of what they wore at an interview?
No. I think that would be weird, unethical. I have hired somebody. I have like the contractor who does a lot of my design work. I hired her just because of. I hired her off of a gift. I saw a gift that she did
Interesting.
one day, and I was like, "Look, we don't have to do no interviewing. This is how much I'm gonna pay you. This is how much, this is how much work we're gonna do. Does this make sense to you?" She's like, "Yo, this is awesome." And then I was like, "Sign a contract." And that was it. Like
Cool.
the she does a lot of my design work for a lot of my talks and stuff. So, I mean, someone I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I had to be in a position one day where somebody walks into like an interview in full Captain America outfits, and like with working wings. You gotta do Black Captain America though. You had to have working
Yeah, yeah.
wings or like shield and a shield and a Mjolnir, and it has to be like one of those like like real Mjolnirs where I can't pick it up but you can.
Right.
Never know.
I've, I've actually got plans for one of those. You do the big electromagnet thing on the inside.
Yeah,
I've got the plastic one that I want to hollow out at some point, and I've got the little
yeah.
thumbprint reader that some dude made on YouTube for it, the whole bit. I haven't hired anybody because of what they wore, but I do remember like way after the fact, after interviews happen, it's like, yeah, you remember that person that came in with the blue hair? Is like, if you get remembered for like what you wore or something about you like as a person, like the color of your hair, like piercings or something like that, they're remembering you for the wrong thing. So
Yeah,
it's
I almost
yeah.
didn't get hired
Oh really?
for what I wore because the company CBS that owned the company that owned Sportsline, 247 Sports comic book. I came in right after this really big meeting with like these politicians, so I was dressed super professional as job, and that was hiring me was in a baseball cap, a hat, some jeans, and was throwing expletives at someone else over a bet they just made on some like NCAA thing. And I was like, he had one look at me. He's like, "I don't know if this is gonna work for it. Like, I don't know. Like, you came in here in a full suit, and I'm
Yeah,
in
yeah.
here dressed in a dirty baseball suit." So I was like, "No, I just came from a thing. It's
Right.
okay." And it was super funny. And it was, yeah, that was the funniest. Like, they're like, "I don't think he gonna fit. He actually looks like a professional. You're not it."
My
So,
my own job hunt has been really weird because I show up in like a button down shirt, whether it's a flannel or like just business casual. Like even though they only see me from like here up on Zoom calls and stuff, but like I'll still show up wearing what I wear. I got the lights going in the background. I'll usually throw their logo on the TV here, kind of thing. But it's always interesting like having the interviewer show up in like a backwards ball cap and a hoodie, and it's like, all right, yeah, it is what it is. It's like I could have showed up in a
or
ball
they
cap
don't
and a
turn
hoodie. But
they don't even turn on their camera. Like I had one. I was like, "Yo, you doing that? You got to turn on
yeah,
your camera. Like we in a whole panini. You got to turn on the
right, right.
camera."
Hey, we got two questions in chat. Let's address these real quick. So, Coding with James dropped a question: how much do you factor pure technical skill versus desire to learn versus personality? These are all I think of factors in interviews as of now. So, if there's more, I'd love to know about that as well.
All right, so I'm gonna do a. I feel like desire to learn and personality outweighs technical skills because a person with a desire and willing to do the work, you can teach them anything. They can fit in and stuff. And personality, I am a firm believer in two rules in my life when it comes to work. That's the 2 a.m. rule and the 5 p.m. rule. The 2 a.m. rule is if you're honest with yourself and someone asks you, um, what is that thing that is 2 o'clock in the morning? You're groggy, you're tired, and stuff. That your phone goes off for pager duty. That you're gonna jump out of bed and not complain the most about to fix on the website. What's that thing? That's the thing that you really want to do in tech, right there. The thing that you're going to complain about the least in your phone, because you're probably going to complain about all of it if your phone goes off on page duty. But the thing you're going to jump out of bed and start fixing the errors, that's the thing that you really want to do in tech. So that's the 2 a.m. rule. The 5 p.m. rule is you want to be the person that after when you go come to work at 8 and you leave at 5, that they do not want to throw out of a window, right? So you do not want to be the person they want to throw out a window at 5 p.m. If you fail the 5 p.m. rule, it doesn't matter how smart you are, right? Unless you
It's
are
awesome.
on nothing but revenue building products and you're knocking them out fast. And harsh reality is most people in tech aren't that close to most of the revenue building products. It's usually sales and finance. So
Hmm.
it's very hard in tech to be um, like insulated from the 5 p.m. rule. So I definitely prefer somebody that, if I am in the trenches on like a crazy outage, if I'm on a PL1 outage or something and we have to knock something out, we have to go, balls to the wall or something. I want to make sure that I actually get to enjoy going through hell and back with you. That's just something like that's what I
For
want.
sure. Yep.
Um,
Gotta hire good
when
teammates.
it, yeah, when it comes to desire to learn, I want you to have a desire to learn, and I feel like desire to learn shows up differently because you know what am I thinking about? Like, all right, because if I everybody loves desire to learn, but are they breadth or depth preferential? Do they want you to go deeper in the knowledge that you have, or do they want you to have you know a wide breadth of things? Me, I'm a depth person. I like when a front end engineer comes up to me, or a DevOps engineer, or even a backend. Like if you're a Python data engineer, because I do all three of those. Those are my big three. If you come up to me on something that takes me deeper in that stack, deeper in that world, I'm more impressed than someone who jumps in and has a high level overview of like 80 different things, right? You know, like one thing that I had a conversation with a person about a week ago, and they were talking about how I like Tailwind, and they were like they've been in tech for like 6 months. I was like first and foremost, I hate Tailwind because of what it is, because not the what but the why, right?
Okay.
And I asked them about the history of it, things like that, and they didn't give me like the why of it. I was like, all right, so the problem that Tailwind solves is that during the framework wars, where all the front end engineers had to learn 8 billion frameworks to keep up, and JavaScript was the wild wild west. A lot of those people as junior entry level devs didn't have time to really focus and shore up on their skills. So now you have a generation of mid and senior level front end engineers and React developers that can't really do UI design to save their lives. And Tailwind solves the problem of the mid to seniors, and that's why you only really why you hear these mid to seniors love it because they can't design or the life or the damn, right? However, Tailwind doesn't make sense if you're a junior coming in now because the platform does like 80% of what Tailwind does. So you're really it's really not that big of a deal, right? You can't, I mean, you have CSS grid, you have Flex, you're gonna have subgrid some. Tailwind, it doesn't, that's just bloat right there at that point. And then that only makes you have to use a framework. So you're not gonna use the platform. So now you're gonna be giving me React and HTML stuff. I'm like, yeah, people are gonna hate you and hate it. Don't do that. So like, that was a thing, right? But they didn't have the depth. They were like, wow, like really all that stuff. I was like, yeah, you have to understand. You have to go deep into
Yeah.
the thing, right? What's the why behind it? Versus like, oh, I'm doing all of these frameworks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, I
Having
love that, but I'm a depth person.
Yeah, I'm the same way. The deeper you go on something, the easier you can transfer that knowledge to the next thing. But if you're sacrificing depth for breadth of knowledge, like yeah, maybe you want to be a generalist in your career, but those first couple of jobs, you have to have some amount of depth. Like I know that you can like dive in and do the thing. When I
I feel like
prioritize,
your first year. Sorry, I was just
sorry,
gonna say
no,
I
go
feel
ahead.
like your first year you should be getting deeper. Your first year of coding, especially on a job, you should be getting as deep as you can on one area of specialization as possible,
Yeah, for sure.
because your next job is going to leverage whatever you were really deep in on the next job. I mean, at the current job, that's how it works, right?
Yeah,
It takes a certain level of experience where you can branch out, become a T-shaped developer, as I like
yep,
to call it.
yep, for sure. Yeah, and I think when I so just going back to James's question, like technical skill versus desire to learn versus personality, I agree wholeheartedly. It's about the people that you work with. You got to have the personality there. Otherwise, people don't want to work with you. You can be the smartest person in the room, but if you're a jerk about it or arrogant about it, like nobody cares. Um, and then desire to learn is an entry level dev. That's a critical skill. You have to have a desire to learn, especially when it's something that you didn't particularly train on. So, let's say you go to a code school and you go all in on JavaScript, but you're going to go apply for that Python job, or you're going to start in a JavaScript kind of role, but the company wants to pivot tech. Are you going to quit because they're not doing JavaScript anymore? Or are you going to stick around because you built up some loyalty to the company and you want to go learn that other thing? And you're like, yeah, whatever we build in, I don't care. I want to work here. This is why I took the job. Those are the kinds of things that they're going to be really looking for in that. So great question. Shout out to Worst Dodo. Welcome to the stream. Make the blinky lights for you in the background here. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate the follow. Let's go back to Zooey had a follow up similar to James's question. What's something that you've seen in a new developer that like sort of says like you want to invest time into them, even though they don't have all the technical skills right now? What's like aside from the personality and desire to learn stuff that we just talked about? Like, is there something where you're like, I'm gonna like pour everything I got into you?
Initiative, 100%.
Hmm.
In every guy, there's a dude named Phil, Army veteran. He had just graduated from like a local college, but was having trouble. Like he's getting his butt kicked in code challenges and projects. So he thought, if I have a CS degree, they'll just take me in a coding job. He's gonna laugh out the room. So um, he applied, and I was going to his application. He saw something on our web app that needed fixing, or he thought needed fixing, and he made a PR
That's
to
cool.
it.
Nice.
And I looked at the PR, saw his name pop up because I happened to be reviewing his Git, and I looked at the PR and I was like, wait, what? So I went through there, looked at, approved it, and like I was like, no, we got this guy. I gotta have him. Like, took initiative. Like, there is, because as a junior, when I was as junior enlisted, that was one thing that really like molded my career. Was I didn't really wait for people to like do the planning and all the other stuff. I just kind of did stuff and then planned it on the way, just adapted, like overcome and adapted as things happen, and kind of worked out. I never forget all the. I guess you would be the E6. That'd be the equivalent of an engineering manager in tech. They were all here having this convoluted planning meeting that was taking like an hour and a half while we were in the Kuwait sun. It's like 110 degrees on how
Dang.
to get all of our stuff off these trucks, off these 18 wheelers, and back into these connexes in our like team connexes, so that way they can get shipped home. And the whole time they're having this conversation, like, mind you, I'm an E4 at this time, so I'm a senior airman, and I am it's like I said, it's hot. It is super hot, and they're talking about it. I'm like, you know what? Fine. I jump up on the 18 wheeler. They see me jump up, and they think, yeah, whatever. He's being Jerome, whatever. And I start taking stuff off because I'm like, in the end, this stuff got to come off of this 18 wheeler. We can figure out the rest of it. We go, and then I'm doing it, and somebody else jump up and is like, I'm gonna come and help you because you're the only one doing something right, but to solve this problem. And then next thing you know, another person come, and the people that aren't as strong, like they come in, they're like, oh well, what we can do is that we can start finding team names and start putting them in like in flight formation, so we can start like the plan kind of just.
Do the
I was
whole
like, you know
handoff
what?
thing.
Let's
Yeah.
start doing something, right? Yeah. So then the E6s they roll up and then they start just helping because like I like solved the problem, and of course no one put it on my EPR because to them I was being a little shit. So like, how dare you didn't let the people in charge solve the problem? Like, y'all, we'd be out here all day. Like, this is I want to go home. Like,
Yeah.
I am stationed in Florida. I want to go home for Christmas. I ain't got time for that. So like, I don't know. I've always love initiative. My entire because my entire career, I that's been what I've been defined by. So people that show initiative, that immediately gets my attention. Like, no, I want to no, let me help guide you to your goals. If you're
Yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
if you show that, and a lot of people are like that. You'd be amazed how many people like respond to that so like really strong,
Yeah.
right? So
So James asked a really good follow-up question. So those two questions that we just kind of addressed, how do you determine if someone's got that stuff in like what's a relatively short interview process? Like how do you like what kinds of questions would you ask or what kinds of things would you look for to determine that they have those sorts of characteristics?
like, all right, so for initiative, usually with initiative is because like I usually deal with either people who are front ends, things of that nature. I can usually spot a person who has initiative as a front end developer like from 100 yards, right? Because I've been doing it with so many people so long. One person who I helped another company hire um, recently, she beat everybody simply off of because as a front end, she had user personas for her projects. Like
Hmm.
overwhelmingly, most front ends they don't have user personas. Like, I'm like, all right, who are you? They never answer the question who you're coding for. This is a junior entry level dev who's answered the question of who they're coding for
Yep.
before they did the code. Like that's initiative, right? You're
Yeah.
thinking deeper than your constituents are. Like, come on.
I tell people that all the time
So
when you're building projects on your resume, start with a user empathy statement like users can blah blah blah. Like tell me what the user's doing with this project. Don't just be like, "Oh, I built a Rails app with a React front end that it consumes an API." It's like, "So what? What does the user do? Like tell me why you built this for somebody." Like that's the
what is the
number
problem?
one thing. Yeah.
Who is the person? What is the problem they're having? How are you solving it? User solving
Right.
it. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Person, problem, solution.
Yeah.
Um, that's the easiest way. Like I always like I'm a little like you go on Twitter. There's a thing like a V1 on my office on all the screens I have. I'm literally like Batman. I'm like hella stalky when I like interview. I go through everything, and I have like a billion tabs open, and I throw your email into the Googles and into like the Facebooks and everything. I'm super stalky. I'm on Insta. I'm looking for anything that can like. I'm like, nah. I want to know this person. I want to be able to talk about this everything. I want to see what we have in common, what we hate, everything.
For sure.
So like that. I mean, for me, that's how it is. But some kind of that's just how I do it. But for like, if I'm like, let's say I have 15 minutes, I'm trying to get the skill things around. I'm gonna say, so tell me about a time you did something, um, you did something without getting leadership's permission and it worked. Tell me something about a time that you did something without leadership's permission that you're trying to get worked and it failed. How you overcame that. Tell me, give me an experience of tell me the experience of the best group project that you had, right? Because everybody, because you're either the person that vanishes, the person that does all the work, the person comes in the last minute, or the person that makes everything hard for everybody, right? So tell me the best experience you have a group project. Like those three questions, you can pretty much figure out like those the qualities that I like and or, that I really want for an individual, right? So that's how I would do it.
Awesome. Worst Dodo, who just followed the stream, dropped in a question. Says, "Is work history at a crypto startup as toxic as it was in 2017, 2018 for finding a non-crypto job?" So I think if I understand the theme, like, are you gonna get kind of branded like a crypto, kind of like toxic,
Crypto bro.
coworker? Yeah, crypto bro. Although in this case I don't know their gender, but crypto bro, and then you go work for some of their company. There are industries for sure where you kind of get pegged as like that person. And I can think of another one like adult entertainment, for example. I worked at a company where someone came from like an adult entertainment, like not as a performer, they were a programmer for an adult entertainment website, and they're like, I can't find any other job because they see that on the resume and nobody wants to hire you. Like they think you're this sleazy person. It's like, you know what? That industry drive has driven so many technological revolutions about what we do on the internet, e-commerce, microtransaction payments, video streaming, like so many things. And it's like all he needed was another company to take a chance on him. And he worked there for several years, and he's been fine since. But it took him a long time from when he left that job to get that next job because no one wanted to touch him, literally. And
That's
and so
hilarious.
I'm wondering whether Where's Dodo's like kind of worried about the same thing, coming from like a crypto background of like, oh, you worked in crypto back in the day, or crypto's kind of like got this, you're wrecking the world, environment and whatever because of crypto, and is that going to brand you in some way? What are your thoughts on that, Jerome?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's still as bad. It's even worse because crypto people their leadership just keeps stepping into it. Last year, Coinbase CEO when he was giving people money that didn't want him because they had to essentially force him to say Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
and because of that, he decided I give you a severance to leave the company if you don't like us taking this new brash anti-culture thing, not anti-culture, they call it political, but it's not political, it's social. It's kind of weird how it's like one of those things where the minute you say woke, everybody knows who you are, right? So,
Yeah.
or how to, yeah, I was just like, oh, yeah, he's not a good one. Like, someone needs to update. I can't say that anymore. Uh, so, like, you get to know, like, this is a person, like, the opposite of woke is sleep, sir. What do you want to do that? But yeah, so, since he's the big dog of that industry, everybody in the industry gets, typecast to that. And it's even worse depending, who you are. So it's,
Hmm.
it's very public out there. Chloe Condon,
Chloe,
she's done
yeah,
a lot of yeah, she's done a
that
lot
was
of things
horrible. Like,
about I'm in and out on that one
yeah.
because if, for instance, I'm very focused on pro and I'm pro veteran, pro underrepresented people in tech, pro minorities. Well, you're minority LGBTQ. You deserve a chance to be at this table and learn a skill. If you saw me like kicking in with the alt right, like and being paid from them like tomorrow, you'd be like, what on earth? So if you're like a person that's in the community trying to do good for the community or build a reputation of good, you're like, oh, I'm gonna go over here and work, in DevRel, which is essentially marketing for these people who are essentially, the Voldemorts in the community. People are gonna be like, wait, what? So, and she had to know. I mean, you you don't get to company at Microsoft with being, that socially unaware. So, I mean, the idea of how I don't know. I felt weird about it because like she was there was a lot of emotional toll on it that she was portraying, but at our level, at the scale of our level and experience, and maybe that's just me because I've been in all types of high level like craziness.
Mhm.
I'm like, you kind of you had to know and be prepared for what was going to happen,
Yeah, but
right?
I think
So
the level and the depth of the attacks that happened because of like, hey, I got this job at Coinbase. Like, I
I
think
didn't
I
see
think
it
I
get
think it went
attacked,
too.
so
I,
you might
oh,
be
it
right.
it went way too far. It went way too far.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
there's no reason to attack anyone, but I could definitely see where it. You know, people do horrible things when they get hurt by people they trust. And well, I'm not advocating
Mhm.
it. I'm just saying that like this is how humans have been acting for thousands of years, right? And I like I
Yeah.
said, I to people I was baptized in fire and the combat worlds of Iraq and Afghanistan. So like I don't advocate it at all. I understand how they felt. I'm not saying it's right at all. I'm just saying I you look at how that happened, that process, everything went down. Yes, crypto is still. I mean, crypto. Be prepared to be. You're typecast, right? And it take a while. And just like how, like you said, like it's insane when you think like from adult entertainment, like most of how tech operates now was pioneered by adult entertainment, right? But you go in like most of our data science stuff and like real world was pioneered like from adult entertainment. But you go in with that stuff on your resume, people are gonna turn away from you. It's
Yeah.
just that's yeah, it's kind of hard. It's that might be a good project, like right there.
Yeah.
You just deserve yes. That's a great DevRel project.
For sure.
Like how to
Cool. Quick shout out to Lego Logic 16 for the follow. Thanks for that. And they dropped a question in: how do you switch to another tech stack without taking a pay cut? That one can be a little tricky, but I think just before you joined, Jerome and I were kind of talking about like depth of knowledge versus breadth of knowledge. I think if you've got enough depth of knowledge and you can convince them how you're going to transfer that knowledge into another tech stack, there shouldn't be a pay cut. Unless it's like drastically different, like you're going from like IoT hardware and now you're going to be like a front end developer or something like that. Those are entirely different realms. But if it's like, I've done, say, JavaScript Express Node backend APIs and I want to do the same in like Python and Flask, it's like it's the same thing. So it's different language, different frameworks. Maybe you could like clarify your question a little bit if you've got like ideas about things that we can more specifically talk about. But I think if you can convince that company how your existing skill set is making you a good enough developer to handle that other kind of role, there should never be a pay cut. But every company's a little different. Jerome, when you've been dealing with like your vets and so on, like have you ever seen that kind of scenario come up?
well because I mean, well, not with tech stacks, right? Because I focus like I think we had a conversation of 70/30, right? I focus on the extendability, right? Like, all right, so when I first started doing DevOps engineering, what we did was we looked at the thing that I was stronger than everybody was. That's how I ended up in DevOps. Is I knew GitHub and CI/CD pipeline with GitHub Actions better than anybody on the team. They're like, oh, you know GitHub because they're using GitHub, and I was like, yeah, great. While you're doing that, you can while the whole time you're leveraging that, you can learn Terraform and Docker. I was
Right.
like, okay, cool, that's it, right? So you have to. I think that starts with looking at the technologies that that can extend into the other technologies that you need to know, right? I can be, a star right here while I'm, still, I could be a pro right here while I'm still being a rookie right here. And I can focus on leveling up while still having a skill right here that is, still adding value. I'm learning right here. I'm adding my value right here, right? That's how that's how I look at it. That's how I did it. So I mean, that's what I would recommend. Like, you have to look at the how you do it versus the what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Cool. So someone redeemed some channel points for a dad joke. Jerome, you're a dad. I'm sure you got some dad jokes in you. What's your favorite dad joke?
none. I'm zero. I'm the weird dad. I don't
Yeah.
have dad jokes in anything. I'm the military dad.
All
So
right. All right.
like I'm the one that makes them push Texas and stuff, or push Georgia since we're in Georgia. So like when
Nice.
they mess up. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of weird.
My wife and I have decided not to have kids. The kids are taking it pretty badly.
That was good. I almost was like, wait, what? I feel so bad. Man. I feel bad at first. I thought you were saying, "Oh, you're a dad." Well, my wife and I decided not to have kids. Then you turn around and be like, "No, wait. So you already had kids? Wait, that kudos.
Yeah. Yeah.
That got me."
There's another one I heard. It was I told my son he was adopted, and he's like, well, I want to meet my biological parents. I'm like, we are your biological parents. Your new parents are coming to get you.
That's horrible. I can see that IRL, and I'm like, that's an awkward
Yeah.
conversation.
Good times. Good times. Cool. Well, we already went like way over time. I appreciate all the questions that we had in chat. So Jerome, I like to end all of my guest spots here by asking some silly rapid fire questions. And these are not meant to be like very thought provoking. like along the lines of like, is a hot dog a sandwich kind of thing. So I'm just gonna like rapid fire a whole bunch of these. Don't give them a ton of thought. Just kind of off the cuff kind of stuff. What sort of secret conspiracy would you like to start?
Think Captain America's real.
All right, all right. Let's see. What's the most ridiculous fact that you know?
Such a tough question. I don't know.
Do you know there's enough room between the Earth and the Moon to fit all the other planets in the solar system?
No, I did not know that.
There you go. In 40 years, what do you think people are going to be nostalgic for?
Beaches.
Beaches?
Yeah, I mean, we keep going to rate we go.
All right. If animals could talk, which one would be the rudest?
My dog.
Which one? You've got 3.
My Akita. He would be. He right now he's essentially a 14-year-old boy trapped in a dog's body. He would do vocal cords. He would say some wild stuff. Man, you'd be like, "Yo, you gotta get out of this house, man. You can't be talking like that."
Nice. Let's see. What used to be considered trashy but is now very classy?
Cut off jeans.
Cut off jeans.
Cut off jeans. Like yeah.
I'm thinking like day drinking, but yeah.
Day drinking was never trash.
If peanut butter wasn't called peanut butter, what would you call it?
Nothing safe for work. Why would you do that? Like, remember, combat veteran.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
Horrible human being.
Fair enough. We'll keep it PG-13 here at least. Awesome. Let's see, Raksh. I think that's how you pronounce your username. Appreciate the follow. Make the blinky lights and the applause for you. Thanks for that. Cool. Well, I think we'll wrap up here. Jerome, appreciate your time tonight. It's always awesome having other perspectives, especially when we kind of clash and like, no, I don't agree. I think that makes the best kind of thing. I think in tech, like listening to lots of perspectives, listening to lots of opinions, you're going to form your own opinions. So yeah, I always tell people like, don't ever just listen to me. That's why I love having people on the stream. So we certainly appreciate your time. Go follow Jerome. I've been dropping his links in the chat over and over and over. Definitely follow Jerome on there. I dropped his LinkedIn, dropped his Twitter, dropped vetswhocode.io. Definitely check that out and support everything that he's doing to help vets get jobs in tech. Appreciate everything you do, man. Definitely going to keep in touch over Twitter. If you ever want to come back on the stream, love to have you. Yeah, cool. I think we'll wrap up there.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for having me. I'll just say thank you for having me, and hopefully I brought some value. And we
Absolutely.
laughed a lot, and we looked at things in a more nuanced way. I like the whole dissenting opinions because, I think about how Socrates used to teach back in the day, and he felt like dissenting opinions is how you learn and grow
For sure.
as a person. Right? Yeah. So, it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome.
I'm stealing all your systems design and database design.
By all means.
I'm acquiring it. I'm not stealing it.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, if you ever want me to come by and have a chat with your students at the school, I'm happy to do that too. So let me know if I can pay you back for your time tonight.
Copy that. We'll go.
Cool. All right. Let's see if we can go find someone to raid. Oh, Where's X is online. I think we'll go raid Where's X. So let me set up a raid. They're doing some software development, advent of code. It's always fun to go encourage other people who are doing who are learning software and working through that kind of process themselves. So we'll go raid Where's X, and they're learning some Dijkstra's algorithms for pathfinding, it looks like, in graphs. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, everyone. Thanks for the questions in chat. If you're watching this on YouTube and you made it this far, appreciate it. Hit like and subscribe, all the good stuff. I'm bad at marketing. You got to help me with it. And Jerome, thanks again for your time. Appreciate it. And we'll catch you all on Thursday. This coming Thursday, we got Mike Chen on the stream. Mike also streams here on Twitch. So we'll definitely check that out. And we're going to go do a raid. So we'll see you over there in a couple of minutes. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.